Welcome to the Wind Down Restorative Yoga practice, which is a very nice practice to do at the end of a busy day or the end of a stressful day. There are a few yoga props that will come in handy during this practice. There's no need to go out and buy anything new so that you can do a restorative practice. There are always things you can find around your house that you can use. You'll want some blankets. 2 to 4 blankets should be enough. I like to use the Mexican blankets. They work really nicely for yoga because they're sturdy. You can wash them, they hold up fairly well. You can also use wool blankets, but try to find something that's sturdy, not too soft. You want your blankets to always be neatly folded. The other prop that will come in handy is a yoga bolster. If you don't have one, you can stack neatly folded blankets or towels on top of each other about 4 to 6 inches high. I have 2 extra blankets there because I like to use lots of blankets. And then 2 yoga blocks can come in handy. And you'll find there are many things we can substitute for blocks. Books can work. For the restorative practices, what I like to do is roll up blankets to put under our knees in poses like Supta Baddha Konasana or reclined cobbler pose. So let's begin by sitting on 2 to 4 neatly folded blankets. And this gives your pelvis a little tilt so that your spine can be perpendicular to the ground, nice and long, so that you can take a nice deep breath in. Begin by taking a few deep breaths all the way down into the low belly. Expanding through the ribs as you inhale. And then slowing the breath down so it becomes very deep and even. And then make your way off of your blankets, moving them out of your way and coming onto your hands and knees for cat-cow. Your hands are right beneath the shoulders, knees right under the hips. And then as you exhale, drop your tailbone down toward the ground and the spine rounds 1 vertebra at a time. The head comes down at the very end. Reversing that on the inhale, tailbone goes up toward the ceiling, spine arches down toward the ground, 1 vertebra at a time, and the head and chest lift at the very end of the motion. Continue that with your breath, rounding on the exhale and then arching on the inhale. At the end of your next cycle of cat-cow, we'll move into child's pose. Bring your big toes together and separate your knees just a bit wider, and then sink your hips back toward your heels, stretching your arms in front of you. And then slowly walk your hands back toward you, lifting your torso up so you're sitting on your heels. And then shift your hips to one side, coming into a seated position and taking your bolster onto your mat, grabbing a blanket, making sure it's neatly folded, and then fold it once the long way so you have a blanket on which to rest your head. And grab your blocks, and if you don't have blocks, you can just roll 2 towels or blankets and put one under each knee for support. When I'm doing a restorative practice, I like to cover the blocks with blankets so you have something nice and soft to rest your knees on. And then move just in front of the bolster. Bring the soles of your feet together, knees out to the side for Baddha Konasana. Bring your blocks or rolled blankets under your knees. And then support yourself as you slowly lie back onto the bolster. Arms are by your side. Supta Baddha Konasana. If you find that the bolster and the blocks are not comfortable for you, if they're too high up, I'm going to show you another option. Take a blanket and fold it in half the long way, and then place it on your mat with another folded blanket above that one so they form a T. The one at the top of the T will be for your head, and the other one for your spine. Then take another blanket, open it up, and roll it. And I'll demonstrate this facing you so that you can see how the blanket goes over the ankles. Place the blanket on top of your feet and then wrap it around behind your ankles. And this gives you some support as your knees open up to the side. Sit just in front of the folded blanket on your mat. The rolled blanket is over your feet, crossed around behind the ankles. And then make your way back down onto the blankets. With every exhalation, let yourself settle a little more deeply into your support, releasing any tension that you're holding on to. And begin to deepen your breath, bringing your attention back to the room. And to come out of the pose, support the back of your head with one hand as you use the other hand to push yourself up off of the bolster. Reach to the outside of your knees to bring your knees toward each other. And then move your rolled blankets or your blocks out of the way. And make your way into child's pose, supported with the bolster. So bring the big toes together, separate the knees so you can pull the bolster between the thighs. And then rest your belly onto the bolster. Fold your arms one over the other. Turn your head to one side and rest your head on your arms, relaxing into child's pose. And begin to deepen your breath, preparing yourself to transition into the next pose. Push your hands into the ground, bringing your torso up, nice and slow. And then move your bolster off to the side. And then take one of your blankets, folding it neatly in half. Make your way onto your back and place the blanket between your knees. Open your arms out to the side in a T with the palms facing up. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, lower your knees over to the left side. You can turn your gaze up toward the ceiling or to the right, whichever is more comfortable for your neck. If your knees don't reach the ground, you can rest your knees on a bolster or a rolled blanket, as I'm doing here. On an inhalation, bring your knees back up to the center, and then as you exhale, lower them to the right. Again, turning your gaze toward the ceiling or to the left. As you inhale, bring your knees back up to the center. Take the blanket away and place it on the ground beside you. And bring your feet back down to the ground. Roll yourself over to one side, resting your head on your arm. And then push your hands into the ground to push yourself up to a seated position, letting your head come up last. From here, we'll transition into legs up the wall pose. Put the short end of your mat right against the wall, and then a blanket folded the long way at the end of the mat that's against the wall. To come into the pose, lie on your side on your mat with your hips up against the wall as though you're sitting on the wall. And then roll to your back, bringing one leg up at a time, bringing your arms down by your side, and letting your hips sink down into the blanket. This is the last pose we'll do before Shavasana, so use this as your transition, letting your mind and body start to settle. Slowly bend your knees, sliding your feet down the wall. Bringing your knees in toward your chest, and the soles of your feet are on the wall. Take a few breaths there. And then roll yourself off to one side, resting your head on your arm. To come up to a seat, push your hands into the ground. Slowly come up, letting your head come up last. From here, we'll make our way into Shavasana. So in Shavasana, traditionally, you're lying on your back with your arms about 45 degrees away from the body, with the palms facing up and the legs a comfortable distance apart. You can also support yourself here with blankets or bolsters. For instance, you might put a rolled blanket under your neck or your head and a bolster under your knees. You could also put a rolled blanket under the knees. Sometimes I like to put a blanket on top of my mat so that I have something nice and soft to lie on for Shavasana. Once you're in Shavasana, take a few deep breaths using your exhalations to release any tension you're still holding on to. And then release control of the breath, letting your breath return to its natural pattern as you sink more deeply into the ground. Slowly begin to deepen your breath. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Circle your wrists and your ankles. If you have room, you can reach your arms overhead, stretching your arms and legs away from each other. And then bend both knees, rolling off to one side. Gently press your hands into the ground to push yourself back up to a seated position. And bring your hands together right at the heart with the thumbs against the breastbone. Take a deep breath there. Namaste.